I was talking with this gentleman the other day, and he said, "John, you know what? It doesn't seem like my teams are actually learning anything." So, whoa, that was condescending. He said, "Well, I actually didn't mean it quite that way. What it is that we seem to be making the same mistakes over and over and over and over." I kind of asked him the key question. I said, "Well, do you do lessons learned?" He said, "Well, of course, John, we do, but it's just not working." Then I asked him another key question. And you know what? We're going to get back to that, but in the meantime, I'd like to thank you for coming back to another episode of John the PM, where we believe that managing projects is not just a job, but a way of life. So let's get back to this gentleman. Okay. He was having a lot of problems within his organization. I asked him a question, which was, do you do lessons learned? He said, well, of course we do lessons learned. After every major project, we come back, we do a full back brief and things of that nature. But it appears that it's not really working. So before I kind of posed a question about how are you actually doing the lessons learned, I asked him another question. I said, hey, do you actually do lessons learned or reflections or quick after action report, whatever you want to call it? Do you do that for yourself? And he looked at me and he said, well, no, not really. And then I kind of looked at him and I said, well, the problem could be, there could be other issues too, is that you are not fully vested in the process. In other words, you're asking somebody else to do something that you yourself do not do. If you don't do your own personal reflections, how do you expect your organization to actually do it? Now, you can mandate it, and obviously you've done that. Stated yourself that you have scheduled lessons learned, on those areas. Now, but before we get into how effective and how efficient they are, and as well as the follow-up and how you're actually conducting it, I just want to take a look at the person in the mirror and say, do you actually walk the talk, or do you just merely direct somebody to do it? Now, those reflections, they don't have to be long. I'm going to use myself as an example. I actually do my reflections in the morning. So, but what I do is early in the morning when I wake up, I have my little journal and I think back the last 24 hours, the day, and kind of ask myself, hey, what went right? What went wrong? What could I have done better? What can I have done the same and still gotten the better results, or whatever may be the case? Not always necessary to beat yourself up. Sometimes you congratulate yourself like, wow, I did a great job on that. Give myself a pat on the back. Other times I say, you know what? It could have been just a little bit tighter. Now, does it take a long time? Honestly, no. It only takes about 5 minutes. I instill that as a discipline upon myself. And then on a weekly basis, I have a little bit longer time period where I do the same thing, but it's a little bit more formal. Now, kind of keep in mind that I'm actually doing this from a personal level, but I'm also doing this from an organizational level. And this is what I would also suggest to organizations as well, is have your quick introspectives, your quick back briefs, your quick reflections on a daily, maybe not every day, but on a frequent basis. And, somewhere in this last 5 or 10 minutes, and there again, you don't have to belabor pieces. Sometimes you may want to do it more frequently, sometimes less, it's up to you. And then have a scheduled, lessons learned where you do a deeper reflection on there. This way you actually get into the habit of doing it. So keep in mind, it's really that habit that really counts. In future episodes, we'll talk a little bit more about the conduct of the formal lessons learned and how you might want to integrate some of those pieces in there. In the meantime, if you like this session, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps the algorithms, allows us to be a better service back to you. In the meantime, may all of your projects just be incredibly awesome.